Chapel Hill, North Carolina, September. A college town shaped by brick pathways, old trees, and the quiet optimism of people who believe the world is opening for them, not closing in. Somewhere near campus, an apartment settles into the stillness of early morning. Inside, 19-year-old Faith Hedgepeth is inside. A daughter, a friend, a student standing on the edge of becoming everything she hoped to be. And then, something shatters the quiet. Not a scream anyone can place, not a sound the neighbors can explain, just sudden, unthinkable violence, followed by a silence so deafening it changes the air in every room. When the sun rises, Faith will be found dead in her own bed. Near her, a small, cruel message will be left behind, one that reads less like evidence and more like a wound. I'm not stupid, bitch. Jealous. A note that will haunt this town for years. Tonight, darlings, we unravel what happened to Faith Hedgepeth and where this case stands right now. Hello and welcome back to RIP, where we do a deep dive into unsolved murder cases. The ones that linger, the ones that haunt, and the ones that still demand answers. I'm your host, Linzy LeGron, and tonight we're stepping into a case that cast a long shadow over Chapel Hill since 2012. Before we begin, I want to express my deepest gratitude to our show producers, Chicken Wrap Entertainment. None of this work would exist without them. Their belief in this show, in these cases, and in honoring these victims with care and integrity is something I hold with genuine reverence. Tonight's case is layered, nuanced, emotional, and still unfolding. So I invite you to lean in, stay curious, and engage with me as we unravel it together. Let's begin. So if something sits with you a little funny, or you have a lingering question or a feeling, I really want you to share that with me. Your insight matters here. Let's start with taking a look at who was Faith Hedgepeth. She was 19 years old and a college student at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She was also a young woman deeply rooted in her identity, a member of the Hawaii Saponi tribe, and very proud of where she came from. Friends described her as luminous, warm, social, the kind of person who made rooms feel less lonely. And she had plans, she had momentum, she had people who loved her fiercely, and she was safe, or at least she should have been. Faith was discovered in her bedroom during the early morning hours of September 7th, 2012, inside her off-campus apartment. The official cause of death was blunt force trauma. Faith, in essence, had been beaten to death. Investigators later confirmed that she had also been sexually assaulted, a detail that would become one of the most crucial forensic elements of the case. What investigators noted immediately: no signs of forced entry, no indication of a break-in, the apartment was not ransacked, nothing of obvious value was stolen. So naturally, this shifted the investigation instantly. The absence of forced entry nearly always suggests one of three possibilities. Faith knew her attacker, Faith allowed someone into her space voluntarily, or the attacker had prior access to the apartment. The scene was described as violent, but restrained, kind of a close contact crime that unfolded indoors, but not necessarily a chaotic intrusion by a stranger off the street. Crucially, investigators recovered biological evidence, including semen, which would later form the backbone of the case, though it would take nearly a decade to identify the person it belonged to. Now let's unpack this note found next to Faith's lifeless body. Near her body, investigators found a handwritten note on a sort of a torn paper bag. And again, it read, "I'm not stupid, bitch. Jealous." One important distinction: the note was not written in blood, it was written with ink or marker, but its language and its placement made it a deeply unsettling component of this case. Investigators immediately treated the note as intentional and psychologically significant because it did several things at once. It introduced motive, jealousy. It introduced emotion, resentment, humiliation, rage. And it introduced confusion because it felt almost performative. From the beginning, investigators asked, was this written by the killer? Was it meant to mislead police? Was it a confession or a distraction? To this day, the note remains one of the most debated elements of the case. After all, Faith was a UNC student in a town that didn't expect this kind of violence. The note suggested motive without naming a suspect. Investigators had DNA, creating hope that science would eventually speak. And then the case stalled, and Faith's family waited, and Chapel Hill waited, and the silence grew ever heavier. But let's now go back to kind of the earliest parts of the investigation and the investigative focus. From the earliest hours of this investigation, obviously Chapel Hill police focused heavily on Faith Hedgepeth's immediate social circle. This included friends, roommates, romantic interests, classmates, partygoers from the night before, essentially anyone known to have been in contact with her shortly before her death. And of course, this is standard protocol, especially in a homicide with no signs of forced entry. Investigators publicly acknowledged that multiple people close to Faith were interviewed, some even more than once. And naturally, phones, messages, and social dynamics were examined closely. Faith was social after all, well-liked, and navigating the complex interpersonal terrain of college life. Friendships, romantic tensions, undefined relationships, emotional push and pull, the things that you're experiencing in your late teens, early 20s. And Faith was no different. People close to Faith were investigated extensively, but no friend or roommate was ever publicly charged, and no one in her immediate social circle was named as a suspect by police. Police reviewed alibis, phone records, text messages, and DNA comparisons where appropriate, and ultimately did not move forward with charges against anyone close to her. The note initially pulled investigative focus inward toward personal relationships because psychologically, it reads like injury, humiliation, and resentment rooted in familiarity. But the presence of male DNA fundamentally altered the investigation and the previously considered narrative. The biological evidence produced a male DNA profile, which immediately challenged the idea that the crime was committed by a jealous woman. Investigators were forced to confront a chilling contradiction. The crime scene suggested familiarity. The note suggested a personal grievance, but the DNA pointed to a man unknown to Faith entirely, which raises an unsettling possibility. The killer wanted this crime to look personal, not because it was, but because personal crimes confuse investigators. So for years, investigators had this DNA, but no name. Imagine years and years going by, and your loved one has been violently ripped from this world, and we have the DNA. But for years, no match can be found. This often happens because the alleged suspect, or the person who left the DNA, is either not in a public database, meaning that they had not been previously charged for the crime and forced to submit their DNA. So I would say most people are not in this database, meaning just because you have DNA in a case does not mean the case can be readily solved. And that's just what Faith's family were up against in this case. After years and years, the DNA hurdle was removed entirely with advances in forensic genealogy and expanded databases. This crime happened in 2012, and in 2019, investigators were finally able to link the DNA recovered from the crime scene to Miguel Enrique Silguero Olivares. He had no known relationship to Faith. He was not part of her social circle, and he was identified solely through forensic evidence. Once identified, investigators learned he was living in the Chapel Hill area at the time of the crime. His DNA matched the biological evidence recovered from the scene, and there was no legitimate explanation for his presence there at the crime scene. As such, he was arrested in 2021, nearly 10 years after this crime took place. According to public records, he did not voluntarily come forward, he did not confess, and he has, since that time, maintained his innocence. The case against him rests almost entirely on that forensic evidence of DNA. So let's take a look at motive. There's really no clear personal motive in this case that's ever been publicly established. Silguero Olivares was not known to Faith. There was no confirmed romantic link, no documented conflict, which leaves investigators with deeply unsettling questions. Was this a crime of opportunity? Was Faith targeted randomly? Or is there missing context still buried in silence? The note complicates everything. If the note reflects jealousy, investigators obviously have to ask, jealous of what? And by whom? The disconnect between forensic certainty and emotional ambiguity is why the case remains fiercely contested. The case is actively contested and really procedurally complex in this case. The defense has challenged the handling of the interpretation of DNA evidence. There have been disputes over chain of custody. Motions have been requested, and additional forensic testing has been requested. Pretrial hearings have been stretched across years, one after the other. One striking development in the case fairly recently was a judge who urged investigators to locate a missing blood sample related to the crime. This was not a blood sample from the suspect. It refers to a blood sample collected from investigators at the crime scene, believed to be potentially relevant for testing or retesting. The concern is that critical evidence may have been lost, misplaced, or improperly documented, which is a tremendously serious issue with enormous implications for both prosecution and defense. This is why the trial has been delayed, and why motions continue to pile up in court, and why, even with an arrest, this case remains unsolved in the eyes of the law. So let's take a second to evaluate the community and cultural impact that Faith's murder had. Faith's murder struck especially hard because she represented more than a headline. She was a young Indigenous woman pursuing education and identity. She was part of a family that was forced to grieve publicly, and a college town confronted with its own vulnerability. Years passed with no arrest, and even now, the slow grind of the legal system weighs heavily on those who loved her. So we're going to take a look just now at a few of the, there's not very much in the way of theories in this case, but we're going to look at the ones that are available to us just now. Theory number 1. The note is literal. If the note reflects the killer's true emotional state, jealous, it suggests a motive anchored in humiliation, rivalry, or rejection. The key question here is, who felt stupid in Faith's orbit? Who felt exposed? Theory number 2 is the note is misdirection. The note could be staged, maybe meant to frame a jealous woman, or create a false narrative or pull attention away from a male perpetrator. The key question here is, if the killer was trying to steer police, what did they feel would be found? Theory 3 is that the killer was known to the apartment. In many cases with no forced entry, the simplest explanation is access. Someone Faith knew, or someone close to her, maybe that was allowed inside, or someone who felt comfortable entering the building. Investigators have publicly emphasized the contradiction and complexity which often aligns with known space dynamics. The key question here is, was this a confrontation that escalated or a planned attack? Theory 4 is that the DNA is the anchor, but maybe not the whole story. The arrest in this case is based on DNA testing from evidence at the scene of the crime. But defense motions and requests for further testing underscore how hard both sides are fighting over what the forensic story actually means. The key question here, does the DNA tell us who was present, who committed the violence, or both? Darlings, when I sit with this case, I keep coming back to the note. I'm not stupid. That phrase doesn't come from nowhere. Seemingly, someone felt insulted, wronged, dismissed, exposed, or they just wanted us to think that. And whether that note is truth or theater, the psychology is the same. This crime feels personal. I believe Faith's killer wanted to correct something, a perceived humiliation, a rejection, a loss of control. And that belief becomes dangerous when paired with entitlement and rage. And here's what chills me the most. Chapel Hill is not a place where people expect monsters, which means the monster can hide in plain sight. If you have ever thought, oh, it's probably nothing, darlings, I beg you, in cases like this, probably nothing is often the missing brick in the wall. If you or anyone you know has any information they believe could help, here are the reporting options. Chapel Hill Carrboro UNC Crime Stoppers, reachable at 919-942-7515, or Chapel Hill Police Department, who can be reached at 919-968-2760. Please comment below, share your theory. But if you have information, names, sightings, a confession, a rumor that always felt a little too real, call Crime Stoppers, call the police. Your voice matters more than you know. Faith Hedgepeth should be here, laughing, graduating, becoming, and yet her story still moves through this world, asking for truth. Thank you, my darlings, for holding space for faith with me tonight, with reverence, with compassion, and with the kind of attention that refuses to let a young woman become just a headline. This episode was brought to you by Chicken Wrap Entertainment and crafted with love by my brilliant editor, Spoke at Face Off Visuals. Until next time, keep your lanterns close, and as always, rest in peace.